From what I've gathered from former NSA employee Edward Snowden is that people in his position see numerous amounts of classified information on a regular basis, to which he felt he was receiving information, policies, and plans that went against his moral code and ethical beliefs. Snowden mentioned that he would every once in a while see patterns of abuse and realized that these patterns were becoming more than just patterns. They were becoming a regular event, a regular occurrence that he himself just could not live with. He couldn't go home like most of these people were, collect a paycheck, keep your mouth shut. He needed to make this apparent to the U.S. people that their privacy was being breached. The issue at hand is that the civilian privacy is essentially non-existent, and that the NSA is able to track, listen, surveillance, and spy on you regardless if you're suspicious of a crime or not. He made it apparent that his position was nothing special, and at any point he himself could wiretap or spy on just about any civilian for any reason at all. He essentially needed no probable cause to do any of that. And that's the point he was trying to make known to the audience, is that he himself wouldn't do that, but he is pretty much saying that anybody at any time could abuse their power. There is an abuse of power that can be used for personal gain rather than public protection. The whole reason why the NSA exists is protect the U.S. people in surveillance, monitor, but it's actually being used in opposite. The reason Snowden fled to Hong Kong is because, many people first off labeled him as a traitor and said that he went to Hong Kong because they're labeled enemy of the United States. But in reality, he fled to Hong Kong because China shares his views of free speech, free protest, and even made a big deal about unfiltered internet. Plus, he mentioned that China has a reputation of independent government. The second point that I want to identify from page 169 is that Snowden clearly depicted that there was an abuse of power in the NSA. He was seeing patterns of abuse and wrongdoing on a regular basis. Meanwhile, the public is clueless that their privacy is being breached, some for no reason at all. Meanwhile, policies were being approved in which he felt the public needed to have some sort of input or even decision-making on it rather than, a group of people behind closed doors approving this policy that would have no effect on them whatsoever. Snowden felt this was a breach of privacy and arguably our freedom. Some could say Snowden had personal gain from this. I believe, if anything, he was making a sacrifice. He had absolutely no personal gain. Nothing to gain here. Let's put it in perspective. He had a high salary job that he stated required very minimal skill and work care. He pretty much had unlimited power at his fingertips. Pretty much show up to work, approve a couple policies, monitor some people, and go home knowing you did something wrong, but you have your hefty paycheck. You go home, sit down, watch TV, go to bed, wake up, do it again. You're essentially being paid to keep your mouth shut. If he wanted to truly damage the United States' reputation or the United States as a whole, he could have shopped classified data, rosters, policies, deals, etc. On the free market and made a fortune. But instead, he went out and just gave it to the people. He wanted them to be aware of the NSA's abuse of power and wrongdoing. He even said that if he really wanted to have some sort of personal gain, he could have went to Russia, who would have had their arms wide open. Yeah, I think there was no personal gain here. He's depicted by a traitor, but he has to live in fear of his life because of his sacrifice. If you ask me, that's the opposite of gain. If anything, he lost, his sense of safety, his sense of security. He's a traitor by the United States. He pretty much cannot go back. He had zero benefit from this scenario. He could have easily, like I said, collected his paycheck and go home. Live his life knowing that there was these policies being passed, that privacy was being breached. Instead, he did the opposite. He sacrificed his way of life in order to make the United States people aware of these wrongdoings.